going to be talking about tonight. I'm going to be talking about trash, where it goes, what's the biggest part of trash, why is the way we deal with trash a problem, and then ways to reduce our trash. And I'd like to start by putting all this in the context for us as a congregation by reminding us about our creation justice covenant. John, would you please read it for us?
Absolutely. And if you wouldn't mind just going to the first slide.
Is that the first one?
Perfect.
Sorry.
We, the members of First Congregational Church of Montclair, New Jersey, affirm that caring for creation is fundamental to our faith. We love our home, the earth, and we believe that we are blessed with the responsibility of caring for the planet. We also believe this responsibility is inseparable from our relationship with God, each other, and all living things. In caring for the earth, we mean to create healthy and safe communities for our families and neighbors. Tending to these relationships fills us with joy and wisdom, and we are grateful for the abundance it brings. Too often, however, instead of protecting her, we have exploited our planet out of greed or ignorance. Now the planet is in crisis, and so then are we. Worse, those who have done the least to cause the climate crisis are often the hardest hit by flooding, fires, dirty air, drought, among other climate disasters. Our fervent belief is that this climate inequity is incompatible with Christ's gospel, which is rooted in love, healing, and justice. Our congregation therefore commits to the idea that creation care is central to each aspect of our church, our theology and worship, institutional life and practices, and our partnership and work in the wider community. In celebration and gratitude for the gifts of God's creation, we humbly ask God's grace as we endeavor to make meaningful actions to protect all life on Earth by confronting the climate crisis and climate inequality.
May it be so.
Amen.
So I started looking into this about 10 years ago and was really shocked about what I discovered. And some of you may already know this, but when our trash goes away, it goes to the Covanta incinerator in the Ironbound neighborhood in Newark. The one on the left is from Covanta's website. The one on the right with the pink smoke is from a neighborhood community person taking a photo on a day when there was likely hazardous waste that somehow got mixed in there. So every day, 200 to 300 diesel trucks are delivering garbage. About 3,000 tons of garbage is burned every day. And the trash is coming not only from Montclair, but from all of Essex County and most of New York City. So it's a lot of trash. And Newark residents are breathing that dirty air and experiencing higher rates of cancer, asthma, heart and lung disease. And Newark children have higher rates of asthma than the national average from breathing that dirty air. So this is from a prayer that we said as a congregation last September. We believe the earth is a sanctuary, a sacred planet filled with God's presence, a home for us to share with all creatures. We see many suffer because of human crimes against creation. Can you all see the top line of this, or I have to get the photos of all of you over to the side. Okay. Yeah. The Ironbound is a low-income Black and brown community and one of the most toxic neighborhoods in America. Environmental racism is a human crime against creation. And maybe some of you came to the showing of The Sacrifice Zone, which is a documentary about the Ironbound neighborhood and the efforts to clean up the neighborhood and make it more safe. So the residents have been protesting for decades. So here's 1980s, just a few years ago. And they were able to stop the most recent sludge treatment facility. But in spite of this 1980s protesting here, the incinerator was still built. So incineration was a thing for a while, but then in the 60s, because of the pollution, it was rejected, but it's now being rebranded as resource recovery or waste to energy facility. And you might think, well, maybe that's not so bad because at least something is happening with burning this trash, but it is bad. And it's bad because it emits toxic pollutants, greenhouse gases, contributes to climate crisis, 2.5 times more harmful than coal. And then there's the toxic ash that has to be buried in special landfills, wasteful and costly. And this dirty energy is being greenwashed, and it takes away government subsidies from actual renewable energy. So it's all around, it's a bad thing. All of the New Jersey incinerators are located in overburdened environmental justice communities. Shocking, right? So here's an article from a few years ago. African Americans are 75% more likely than others to live near facilities that produce hazardous waste. So here are the New Jersey incinerators. And this one on the side is just over the border in Pennsylvania, all environmental justice communities. The Covanta, which is, they own these three, their global headquarters in Morristown. And you may wonder, since you see these dates, 1990s when they were built, you might want to know what was happening to the trash before the incinerators. There were landfills. And at one point, there were over 400 landfills. And the area in the Meadowlands had about 24, and they were receiving 11,000 tons of garbage a day. Can you just can't even kind of fathom what that is? And activists and others started noticing that landfills were leaching toxins into the water and the soil. They were emitting stench and stinking and air pollution. And so they started being closed down. And plus they were getting filled up and there was no more room to put more garbage in them. And the last one in the Meadowlands closed, I think in like 2020, maybe. And that whole area has been reclaimed as a wetlands. So that's a good thing, but it's very confusing to try to figure out if there are any landfills still in New Jersey. I know that northwestern Jersey up here, they send their trash by train out of state to the landfill. So the whole waste management industry is very convoluted and confusing. So as people of faith, we have a responsibility to take actions to create healthy and safe communities for our families and neighbors. We can do it. So now we know where the trash goes. Let's talk about how we can create less trash. So as you all probably know, I'm a kitchen designer, and in every kitchen, I plan for some waste management system. My favorite one is this one, which this is my own kitchen here. So 35 quart paper recycling, 35 quart commingled, 8 quart compost, and 8 quart incinerator trash. So this is intentionally small to remind myself to not put much in there. And honestly, what usually ends up there is food packaging that cannot be recycled. It's very frustrating. But, you know, we all do our best. So guess what? Food waste is the largest category of household garbage. I was surprised to learn that. But that also really gives us a great opportunity to do something about it, because that's something we have control over. US food waste is responsible for twice as much heat trapping pollution as flying. I find that astounding. Average family in Central Ohio spends $1,500 a year on food they don't eat. Average household wastes nearly a third of the food that it buys. So go to the grocery store, you buy your 3 bags of food, and on your way to the car, just dump one in the trash. Save yourself the time and effort. Wow, right? So there's a lot of confusion about these food expiration dates, and that contributes to food waste. They're not federally mandated. They're not regulated. The manufacturers self-label them to show their best guess of when the food would still be optimally fresh, but it's not really an indication that it's going to go bad after that. So uncertainty about this and confusion around it contributes to about 20% of food waste, because people just are worried, you know, I shouldn't eat that, so I'm going to throw it away. So unless it looks or smells bad, eat it, and you'd be fine. And especially if you cook it, you could feel even more confident, because that would get rid of any bacteria. So here's a bunch of tips about reducing food waste, because that's really a good place to start. Oh my goodness. Oh, there they are. Okay. Make a list of meals. So think about your favorite meals, meals that are really quick to make if you don't have a lot of time, meals that maybe a new recipe you want to try, you get yourself excited. Then look in your fridge and food pantry, see what you have, make a weekly meal plan based on that, and then make a grocery list for those meals. Don't shop when you're hungry. Don't impulse buy. About 55% of impulse buy food gets wasted, because you bought that really great looking bunch of asparagus, but you didn't plan how you're going to make it or when, and it just goes bad. I have done that myself, so I try not to do that anymore. And then commit to using the food you buy. Sometimes you may not feel like cooking, but you're thinking to yourself, I don't want to waste this food. I don't want it to go bad, so I'm going to cook anyway. And then if you find that you're consistently throwing out food, then make less food in smaller portions. But this meal planning is a big key to cutting down food waste. And then Instagram has these different accounts that do all these sort of life hacks. So, you know, you forgot about the food, so you put it in a bin, says eat me first. And then this happens to me, my herbs, you know, you have to buy a big bunch and you can't use them all up. Freeze them. We just got ice cube trays yesterday to start doing this, because we have a big bunch of cilantro where you can't eat it all before it goes bad. So there's lots of tips like this, just a few to get you thinking. And then leftovers. My favorite lunch is leftover dinner. So here you can eat or freeze, then eat your leftovers, add fresh ingredients, and then a new meal. Chop up your leftovers, make a soup, take them all out, cut them small, put them on a platter, charcuterie board right here, fancy. Stuff it all in a pita, got breakfast or lunch. I've heard some people hate leftovers, so maybe this is not for you, but I think it's good to try to eat them. One of my clients intentionally makes more food, and she calls them planovers, not leftovers. And then when you're wrapping up your leftovers, don't be wrapping it in this plastic wrap. Cancer-causing chemicals. You don't want it touching your food. So use beeswax or glass containers. They'll keep your food fresher. And then there's this awesome group in Montclair on Facebook called the Montclair Area Food Swap. So say you bought something, you can't eat it all, but it's still fresh, it's still good, and you would like to share it. People post and share prepared food, produce, pantry items, anything really. You post it on there, someone wants it, and they come pick it up from you. I think it's so awesome because this kind of food you can't donate to a food pantry. But this is like a person-to-person kind of swap. I think it's a great idea. This was started by a fellow member from Montclair Climate Action during the pandemic when she was just going crazy with how much extra food she had. And it's been very active. Oh, has this ever happened to you? So as hard as we try, things will spoil. We might not get to it soon enough. And then obviously when you're prepping food, you end up with some food waste and scraps. So we also need a plan for how to handle that stuff. So the big point that I want to make, and I will keep making, is don't send your food waste to the incinerator. And when you think about putting something in the trash, just think about, I am sending this to burn in the ironbound section of Newburgh. That is a big motivator for me. So you could compost in your backyard, have a bin, say, in your kitchen, do this if you need help on it. Montclair has the rot line that you could call. And also there's different online tutorials. And I think Montclair Community Farm is having some classes on doing composting. Or compost on your countertop. So this is a small little appliance. You put the food scraps in, and within 4 hours, you have compost. Or drop it off at FCC coming this spring. Or drop it off at Montclair Community Farms, free year-round. You go to their website and they give you instructions on what you can put in there and how to do it. Or have a pay service that comes picks it up. So I personally do this one. It's too much to manage all the other stuff. So I'm very happy to pay for this. And in your own backyard composting, you can't put meat and dairy in because you don't want to attract critters. But in this service, you can put that in. So lots of ways to compost. And then if you feel you can't do any composting at all, use a garbage disposal. And this here is a little button on the countertop. Instead of having a switch on the backsplash, which often gets confused with a light switch and you turn it on accidentally. But this is my kitchen here. So again, just keep it out of the trash. So just reminding, there's no such thing as a way. When we throw anything away, it has to go somewhere. So there is a hierarchy of how to handle stuff. So at the very top, refuse. Just don't even take the thing. Someone offers you something, you don't have to take it. Reduce the amount that you're using or buying, reuse things instead of getting a single purpose item, repurpose things. It was one thing, but you can turn it into another, repair things, don't just throw them away, and then rot, compost. Recycle is intentionally at the bottom of the list. It used to be that, well, I used to think, along with many others, that recycling was sort of the key to everything. Like if we were recycling, we were being good environmentalists and we were really doing a lot. Boy, was I wrong. Especially with plastic, the oil and gas industry has marketed and convinced consumers that it's our individual responsibility to handle all the plastic waste. And they really pushed recycling. And that's a big push of what was behind the recycling in the 70s and 80s. But we're on to them. So just a bunch of ideas quick. I'm sure you all have many, and if you have others, just put them in the chat. But of course, we're absolutely avoiding plastic bottles. And oh, look at that, an FCC water bottle. So you could even up your game and have a water filter at your kitchen faucet or a whole house water filter. So you get fresh, clean water in your reusable water bottle. And just kick the paper towel habit. It's unnecessary. And once you start using little reusable kitchen cloths, you'll just be amazed at how easy it is to just not ever buy paper towels. And you might think, well, it's going to get really gross and dirty. Well, you wash it. So I put these cloths and also the napkins when I do my like bath linens, just put in a whole load of all these kind of towels and stuff. It's very easy to manage. And then Heather, you were mentioning about not getting the laundry detergent. So this is mostly water. And you're buying a big jug of water with a little soap in it. So do the powder in a box or a bag. And then of course we bring our own shopping bags to the grocery store. But how about the reusable produce bag? That's another way to up your game on that. And this is not kitchen, but the toothbrushes. So when your dentist tries to give you one, just say no. This is from Greenpeace. They did an article recently about all the toothbrushes ending up on the beaches, and just this photo of hundreds and thousands of them. So you can get a bamboo toothbrush and you could put that in with your yard waste or compost it. So recycling is still an important part of waste management. I was a little down on recycling until recently when I realized, looking at the statistic, that recycling is great. It's really just plastic that's the problem, that it doesn't get recycled and it can't be recycled. But in 1987, New Jersey was the first state to enact a recycling law. So that's pretty cool. So here's just a few categories of recycling. Paper and cardboard are recycled at pretty high rates. So yay us. And here's some of the things. Cardboard is made into, a bunch of other stuff. The newspaper can be remade into all of those kinds of things. Glass, 100% recyclable, very low recycling rates. But here is recycled tile. Just one of the many ways that glass can be recycled and repurposed. Cans, 100% recyclable. old can, new can. And styrofoam, oh, ubiquitous. So Montclair accepts styrofoam recycling the first and third Saturday of the month from 9 to about 1. Get there early because when the truck fills up, they close it down. So this is only packaging, not food containers, not peanuts. And it needs to be clean and in a plastic bag, a clear bag so they can see what's in there. And the bag keeps it clean. Also, if it's dirty, it contaminates the whole lot. So you need to be a little careful with how you handle it, but so great to be able to take that somewhere and not put it in the trash. And wish cycling. So I used to think, well, just in case it could be recycled, maybe I should just put it in there, but bad, should not do that. It's better to put it in the trash because say like this pizza box over here. So the clean side, yes, you can recycle, the dirty side, no, because it contaminates the whole lot and then they reject it or throw it out and put it in the trash anyway. So better to do your own sorting and be very mindful about what you put in there. And in the plastic and glass, really should be rinsed out and as clean as you can get it. Recycling e-waste. So Montclair also accepts drop-off, same time, same day and time as the styrofoam, but they do it every Saturday. So you can really take just anything there. And low rates of recycling, but these electronics have a lot of toxins in them, metals, etc. So the metal, glass, and plastic can be recovered and reused. So never put your e-waste in the trash. That includes phones. I'm sure you guys know this. All right, plastic. So do you all know that Taylor Swift song? It's me, I'm the problem, it's me. So that's plastic. It's the problem. So plastic is only recycled about 2 to 5% of it. And we keep hearing worse and worse news about the recycling rates. At one point, it was the highest, it was 9%, which is still pretty pitiful. And it ends up, you've seen it, it's in that big garbage patch in the Pacific, and it's up on the beaches in like Thailand and India, and little kids are scrambling through the piles trying to sort things, and it's really just disgusting. And it can only be recycled a few times, paper a few more times, but aluminum, glass, metal, unlimited. So we really need to be more mindful about actually recycling those things. So plastic disposal is a big problem, as you all know. It doesn't decompose, it just gets smaller. And you know about the microplastics that are everywhere now. They're in the ocean, in our food, in our bodies, and not healthy. So the disposal is a problem, but also the production is a big problem. So plastic has minimum of 148 different toxic chemicals in it. All these different problematic things. And then, hello, East Palestine. These rail cars were carrying the ingredients to make plastic. So, as you probably know, plastic is made from gas or oil or coal, plus other toxic ingredients. And 100 fossil fuel companies are responsible for 71% of the global carbon emissions. And they get $20 billion a year in US government direct subsidies. But they only make 2.8 billion a day profit for the last 50 years. So big profitable business and disastrous impact on the planet. So everything you make returns to the earth as either food or poison. And this reminds me of the slogan from the gun safety groups about you're either with the kids or with the killers. It's kind of the same thing. We have to choose a side and really step up. So the bigger picture is that even changing our personal habits as individuals will never alone by itself solve the climate crisis. We shouldn't stop doing what we can do. And we also need to step up and challenge the system that allows corporations to profit at the expense of our health and safety. And here we were in Trenton 2 years ago, a year ago, kind of lost track of time, but
A year ago, yeah.
yeah, protesting about 7 pending permits for fossil fuel expansions, and Governor Murphy has not acted on those yet, still pending. And just again, from our covenant, those who have done the least to cause the climate crisis are often the hardest hit by flooding, fires, dirty air, and drought, among other climate disasters. These are little kids in Newark. This was from our Dirty Bank protest the other day. System change, not climate change. I love that. So Jesus challenged the empire. Jesus disrupted business as usual. Jesus empowered the marginalized. So let us go forth in the name of Christ to bring justice into oppressive structures. The first 3 lines here are from the book Cathedral on Fire by John, what's his name? Brooks Burnt.
You got it.
Environmental Justice Minister. To summarize, so reduce what you buy, refuse single-use disposable items, don't buy plastic, reduce the waste you create, don't throw your food in the trash, and be a creation caretaker. And step up and let's do the work together. And this is from a climate rally in New York. This might have been already 5 years ago. And this also is the end of our covenant. Our fervent belief is that climate inequality is incompatible with Christ's gospel, which is rooted in love, healing, and justice. And that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you, Tracey. We have one question in the chat from Reverend Rusty.
Are plastics being burned? Well, if they're being put in the trash, yes. Because that's the only other place they would go, I guess, if they're not being sent to recycling. I don't know what happens to the plastic that is put in recycling and then gets rejected. I think that also goes into the trash. So it might be sent out of state to a landfill, but most likely it's getting burned, and that's very toxic. I mean, that's a nasty smell. Heather.
I think one thing that it's, in my opinion, good to maybe emphasize to people too is, to try and do everything immediately sounds so overwhelming.
Oh, for sure.
Even just taking, I mean, I felt good about doing the laundry stuff. I feel good about the fact that I freeze a lot of foods. When I cook, I freeze a lot so that I don't waste leftovers. It's, I'm not doing everything, but at least I'm doing something. And I think that's important, that people get a sense of, not to feel, I can't do it all, so why bother? You know what I'm saying? That
Absolutely.
any little thing you do is a positive step.
It is.
And when
And
you do
talking to
something,
people about it.
then you feel empowered to start maybe something else,
Right.
Exactly.
Mhm. Yeah,
Thank you
because it can be
so much.
overwhelming. It's changing habits of the way we've done things for a long time, and just being more mindful and making changes as you can. Yeah.
I'm interested in the compost coming to, my mother always composted. She had a beautiful garden and she composted all the time. I can't do that where I live. So I'm interested in this coming to Montclair, to UC First Congregational.
Mhm.
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah,
interesting.
it'd be great. Yeah. Allison, were you going to say something?
Well, I just really, really appreciate all your work on this and putting it together in such
Oh,
a
thank you.
helpful, clear way. And there's just so many great tips in there. Again, it's just something that I think about a lot, and I feel, kind of helpless just seeing this mountains of trash, even just in our apartment building. So,
Yeah.
this is hopeful. I did want to say, I also recently got an email from United Airlines with the title, "We've hired a chief trash officer." And it does seem like this idea of burning trash to create energy is something that corporations are really taking on. They're really like, green energy, we're going to burn trash. So that is the airlines, that's their big plan right now, is to burn trash to fly airplanes. And it's just horrible to think about, all of that just pouring over our city, over the earth, like all this toxic energy. So I don't know. And then our other recent airline story was, we were flying home from a wedding, and they came by, asked for our trash. Of course, we had like the little, the cans. And I asked them, like, do you recycle the cans? And they were just straight in the trash, all of those aluminum cans. And it was just so discouraging, because that's, like you said, the easiest thing to recycle, and it's when it can continue to be recycled over and over again.
Yeah.
So it is, it's
It
discouraging.
is discouraging. Well, I think one time when I asked, they said we throw it all in one bag and it gets sorted later.
Lots of luck.
Yeah.
Really?
They hire people especially to do that, I'm sure.
Yeah, child labor, now that that's back.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Well, one source of amazing amounts of trash seems to be the healthcare industry and hospitals. And I just read an article that said that they're starting to talk about that. I mean, the enormous amount of, the gloves and the plastic, just enormous amounts of plastic. So I hope that will do something. I think I liked your point. I loved your presentation, by the way, Tracy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Rusty.
One point you made, I think, was that the fossil fuel industry tried to convince all of us that we had to recycle, so it was our responsibility. And I truly think what everything you said is very important. But we also need to advocate to change the whole system, because the whole system is rotten. And the truth is that not many, a percentage of our population will do all the, the things that you talked about, but it's not going to be this, it's going to be this, And so, we really need to get the whole system to change. So it's not all on our shoulders to do everything to change this system, because the system is rotten and it needs to shift.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, our individual actions alone will not solve this crisis.
Yeah.
Really the corporations and corporate greed.
Yeah. So we need to keep pressuring, and even that is discouraging.
Yeah,
But you know, I think it starts with our leadership. And a perfect example, I was watching The View and they were talking about guns, but it was germane. And they interviewed a senator from, I think it was Maryland, because I was catching the tail end of it. And they said to him, you know, you have small children. Aren't you worried about your children in school? And he said, no, we're homeschooling.
Mhm.
Well, hello, you know, and I think it's the same thing. I mean, these people who make the corporate decisions are so far above that they've kind of isolated themselves and think that everything underneath is just wonderful. And I think that there's got to be change from above, in our leadership.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we had a climate president who has just signed for more drilling in Alaska, and then today opened up an auction for gas and oil leases in the Gulf of Mexico. It's infuriating. I
Yeah.
mean,
Really.
heck,
If I can suggest, one of the things that I heard you mention was the laundry soap. We moved to the sheets, the laundry sheets, and you
how
know,
do you like them?
it's amazing the amount of plastic that those plastic bottles create, and 90% of them are not recyclable.
Right.
Right.
And do you like the laundry sheets? Are they
Yeah.
working for you?
They work fine. They work just as good, if not better, than the
Okay.
liquid.
Great. And Heather said she was doing it too.
And I have my washing machine is such that you put the detergent in a little thing on top, and then the
Right.
water flows through. Even with the laundry sheets, I put the sheet in and I just take a little water and pour it over, and it's fine. It's
Yeah.
I've been very
I have the same thing. All I do is fold it up and put it in that little jar, and it's fine.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, every little bit helps.
yeah.
So I didn't mean to overwhelm you with all these suggestions. These were just really to get you thinking, and if anyone has any other tips they'd like to share, I'm not the only one with ideas here.
I think we should have a push in our congregation for people to move to the laundry sheets.
Okay, or laundry powder, just away from the plastic jugs for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
One thing I have been concerned about is I've noticed, since New Jersey banned single-use plastics, we've now have just unbelievable numbers of reusable plastic bags. So, and I think, a lot of that is because of, I'm assuming it's from the grocery, like online, getting your groceries delivered.
Yep.
We
Or
don't
take out food.
Well, the other problem is, at least
So-
I know from some of my friends, is that they used to use the paper bags that they got from the grocery for their recyclables and for their trash. Well, now they don't get those those paper bags. So guess what they're using for their recyclables and their garbage now? Plastic bags.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Well,
know.
one thing we can do with all those extra grocery bags is donate them to food pantries. And maybe we could let the congregation know, if you're coming on Sunday and you have all these extra bags, just put them in the shopping cart and you can take them to the food pantry with the food.
You've
good.
already promoted two of our next initiatives. So Dillis and Simona are going to be coming up with various tips, very much like the laundry sheets, and that'll be debuted in a few weeks. And then Northeast Earth Coalition actually requested those grocery bags. So that's going to be the next big collection, because we've heard from so many people that they're now just stacking up in their house. They don't know what to do with them. But Northeast Earth Coalition could really use them. So that'll be
Great.
coming up.
Good.
That's a good repurposing. Loop.
Yeah, I think that it's just, there's so much I loved about your presentation, Tracey. And I especially appreciate how you continually circled back to this is a part of our spiritual life, that this is a part of our way of being as Christians. Allison and I did a project on the Shakers. We're in the midst of it. And simplicity was such a core value of the Shakers. And then you just think about how mindfulness is something that people are increasingly speaking about, and the importance of being mindful and not just, reacting, but actually thinking through and making conscious choices. There's a real freedom in that we can exercise when it comes to living in greater harmony with the planet. So, I mean, there's just so many reasons to take this on.
Yep. Well, we do it because we're human and also because we're Christian.
Exactly. Amen.
That even bigger responsibility, I think, to be active.
Yes.
The other issue I find with the reusable bags, people are collecting so many of them in their homes, but the whole point of them is that they're reusable. So, I mean, I never am without them. When I accumulate 10 of them in the house, I put 10 of them inside of one of them and put it in the car. So if I'm going to anywhere, Quick Check, Krauser's, Walgreens, other than the grocery store, wherever I'm going, I always bring a bag in with me.
Oh, yeah.
So get a reusable bag every time I go to one of these stores. And that was the idea of it, is to reuse it as what it is intended for, so that you're not another one every time you go to these stores.
Yep. For sure.
Because bags cost more, and it's going to be reflected in the cost of the goods that you're buying if the stores have to keep buying those more expensive bags, the environment doesn't need it. So, reusing them is the idea behind the reusable bag.
Well, I think reusing is sort of my main philosophy. Well, refusing and reducing, and then reusing. So when I'm faced with a choice of, do I get this or that? I want to reuse something instead of buy something new. And then if I'm buying something new, say in the grocery store, I want to buy something that's in glass or metal rather than plastic. I just noticed the other day, and I can't even believe it took me so long, that chicken broth comes in huge cans. So I don't have to get that, like plastic box with the little cap on it. And spices, get the glass instead of the plastic. I mean, just all these choices along the way. And as we get more mindful and aware, starts becoming second nature. But just preference one over another. Allison, you were muted, or I couldn't hear you.
Okay, sorry. And Whole Foods, just quick tip, by the way, has these wonderful chicken bouillon cubes, but they're pretty low in salt and healthy.
Yeah.
So
oh, nice.
if you want to forgo the can, you can do the cube.
Okay. Right, and add my own one.
I've been using bouillon cubes for a long time. They will have them. And they're good. They make the nice chicken broth.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Don't have to, like you say, get those little boxes.
And if you haven't gotten your FCC water bottle yet, get one. I think they're wonderful.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Here's a question. I don't know if anybody has the answer, Tracey, if you came across this, but I know sometimes like our favorite pasta comes in a cardboard box, but with like a little plastic window. So like, should we be cutting that out? Should we just buy an all cardboard, probably pasta
Well,
box?
I
going-
know that envelopes with a little plastic window, you don't have to
Yeah.
take those off. But
Okay.
with cardboard boxes, it's better if you can remove all the tape. So the plastic window might be part of that. I think the more just raw plastic, I mean, cardboard or paper we can put in the recycling, the easier it is for them at the end of recycling. You know,
And-
you're-
The
I'm-
tissue, I always take the plastic out from around when you get a box of tissues.
Mhm, right?
I always take that out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good idea.
I just,
I know it's more effort in it, but I think it's worth it to not possibly contaminate a whole lot that would otherwise be good.
What takes even less effort? Write a letter to the company and make them aware of it. If you notice, there are companies that are doing that, taking the plastic out. Entenmann's Cakes used to have a plastic top that you could see the cake, and now they've moved to a completely cardboard box with
That's
no
right.
plastic.
Yeah. And so in my business, I order a lot of stuff for clients that gets shipped in boxes, and I have created this hall of shame and hall of fame for packaging. And, you know, the worst one was a huge box with a little box filled with peanuts for a tiny little piece of something,
Right.
which could have been sent in a padded envelope. But a lot of companies now are really focused on packaging and not using any plastic and minimal packaging. So I always like to compliment those companies and shout them out on Instagram or whatever. So I think the positive reinforcement goes a long way.
Absolutely.
People, and also shouting out the shame people too. I mean, it's mind-boggling what some people think is acceptable. But they just need to be I don't know, educated or inspired,
inspired. I like that.
do better.
We're shamed.
Yeah, you know, like
It's-
I can imagine
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
you know,
you
like
gotta put pressure. Yeah.
some dumb kid back in the back end of the factory who's just throwing things in a box without any guidance and, you know, mindlessly doing it. So call attention to the management to like get your act together on this thing. Because when I have reached out to companies and I've mentioned these kinds of things, they said, oh, yeah, I guess we could do better on that. So, you know, consumer activism, I guess we'll call it.
It's a good idea.
Did a good job, Tracy.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you so much, Tracy.
Oh, you're welcome.
tis a gift to be simple. Tis a,
It sure is.
tis a gift to come round where we ought to be. Thank you.
And just want to draw your attention to all the links that are in the chat. Tracy sent this to me earlier.
So this
Lots of great resources.
this might be of interest, this eat by date. It's a website that has categories by food. So if you're feeling particularly insecure about whether or not to eat a certain thing, you can click through the website and just kind of find your food stuff and get some reassurance or clarity around it.
And what is that called, Tracy?
It's called Eat by Date.
By date?
Eat by Date. It's there's a link in the chat.
Tracy, can you send me those links in email?
I sure can.
I'll
Thank-
send it to me as well, Tracy. I'd appreciate that.
Mhm.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks again, Tracy. This was just awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you
Very
very
welcome.
much,
I
Tracey.
really enjoyed doing it and preparing it, and thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Have a great night, everybody.
Take
Got
care.
it.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.